Hi, everyone. Welcome to a special update episode of Crime Family. So, if you are a listener of our show, you'll know that every season, right before the finale, we do a little bit of an update episode just to kind of keep you up to date on some of the new developments in the cases that we've covered that season or even in previous seasons. So we actually do have quite a few interesting updates for some of our cases, so we'll just get right into it. I wanted to start with the Adnan Syed case update because it is the most significant and definitely it was big news. And if you guys follow us on any of the social medias, especially on Instagram, you probably know these updates already because we try to post them in real time once we get the updates. So yeah, for those of you who are followers of us, you probably will know these. But if you don't follow us on social media, definitely do, because that's when you'll get these updates in real time. But very exciting for the Adnan Syed case. So they actually... news came out in March, so just a couple of months ago, that a Baltimore County judge has actually ordered for the first time that DNA testing in Adnan's case happen. So they're actually going to be going back and testing all of the DNA that was not tested in the original trial. So Adnan Syed, if you remember, that was the case. We did a 2-part episode on it back in season 1, and he was a 17-year-old high school student who was charged and convicted of killing his ex-girlfriend Heyman Lee. It was also the case that was featured on season 1 of the Serial podcast, so it's a pretty well-known case. So you probably are aware of it, and he's been in prison, we feel wrongfully, for the last over 20 years now. And so in March, they did just announce they are going to be testing the DNA, which is huge because that means if they test the DNA and it comes back and it's not Adnan's DNA, which we don't believe it will be, that means that he will effectively be released, so that he could hypothetically be released from jail this year, which is actually really exciting. And when I heard that news, it was so amazing. So, and also we follow Rabia Chaudhry on social media, and she's kind of one of his biggest advocates, and she also has a podcast, the Undisclosed podcast. She's close with Adnan's family, so she's kind of been the biggest advocate, so I get all of her updates as well, and when she talks about the case. So definitely a huge development. Do you guys have any thoughts about this update? Because it's pretty big news.
It's pretty exciting. I hope, I'm assuming it's going to come back like he wasn't involved at all, and then he can get out of jail. So fingers crossed that that's what happens, and super exciting for this case because it's been a long time coming.
Yeah, it's huge news. I'm excited to see what happens for sure.
Yeah, and I think the DNA doesn't even necessarily have to come back confirming whose DNA it is. All it would have to do is come back and prove that it's not Adnan. So if it doesn't match his, it doesn't matter necessarily right away whose it is. As long as it's not his, he can be released. So I mean, obviously it does matter whose it is because we want that person to be caught finally. But for Adnan's sake, all it would have to do is basically clear him, which is really exciting. And Rabia, like I said, get her updates, and she says that she has no idea how long the testing will take. So it was just ordered in March. So, I feel like the system could probably take a long time. So it could be months from now. It might even be into next year, which I hope it's not, though. I hope it is this year that it's resolved. But huge news. So we'll put links to articles with all these updates in the show notes as well. So if you want to read a little bit more about these updates, you can do that through the show notes. So that's very exciting. And the next update we have is for the very first case that we ever did on the podcast, and that was the murders of Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow. And that was, of course, the case where Lori Vallow and her husband Chad Daybell were charged with killing the 2 children. That was kind of the one where they kind of were very religious, and they started to get into these doomsday conspiracy theories that they thought the end of times was coming, and they thought the children had turned into zombies. And then there was that whole intricate backstory where there was suspicion that they may have killed their ex-husband and ex-wife and all of that kind of stuff. So really interesting case. But the update that we have for this one actually came out last month, and it's just a small update, but Idaho is going to be seeking the death penalty for Lori Vallow. So last time that we talked about the case, that we didn't really know kind of if they were going to be going for the death penalty or not, but they did reveal that they will be going for that. So if she is convicted of it, she will be facing the death penalty. So that's like a small update. Of course, that case is still ongoing. The trial isn't going to be happening, I think, until next year. So there's still going to be lots of stuff coming later on, but just a small update for that one.
So the next update that I have was from last season, season 2. It was the Tara Grinstead case. And if you guys remember, this was a big case. Back in 2005, Tara Grinstead was a teacher and she vanished from her home in Osceola, Georgia. And her case went unsolved for over a decade. Even though there was plenty of theories and rabbit holes that were explored, this was done by the Up and Vanish podcast with Payne Lindsay. It was one of their whole seasons. So there was a lot that was involved in this case. And when that one ended, there was an arrest in 2019 of Bo Dukes, and he went on trial and was found guilty of being connected to the murder and helping his friend Ryan Duke, who he claims killed Tara and hid her body. Bo Dukes was sentenced to 25 years, and kind of where this ended was Ryan Duke hadn't gone on trial yet, but he was charged with murder. He had confessed, but then later recanted that confession. So the update is that Ryan's trial finally went forward recently, and on May 20th, 2022, Ryan was acquitted of murder, and he was found not guilty of aggravated assault and burglary, but he was convicted of concealing a death, and so he was sentenced to 10 years. Not convicted of murder, though, so no one has been convicted of the murder because Bo Dukes was in jail for just being connected to the murder, helping hide the body. So, yeah, Ryan sentenced to 10 years. He's already served 5, so he'll be out in 5 years. And, yeah, that's the update for that one. Not really the best news, for sure.
Wow, that's shocking that he was acquitted. I mean, I definitely remember when you were telling us about that case. I mean, it seemed pretty clear, or I thought that it was probably leading to him getting like a lifetime sentence or whatever. But the fact that he would be acquitted is shocking. It was because they didn't have enough evidence? Is that what you said? Or
I'm actually not sure why they acquitted him. But yeah, they did. So acquitted of murder, and he was acquitted of aggravated assault. So, I mean, I don't know who they think did it, or if they just think that they both did it. They just don't have enough evidence for that because they never did find her body. So, I mean, that's interesting. It could be, further investigation, or maybe that's just the end.
I'm saying it's crazy because you said he confessed to murdering her, but then recanted it. So it's like, is he lying or is he telling the truth? Like, it's crazy that they would just be like, oh, let's just not charge him with anything. So, yeah, that is really sad on that case because that's not really the news you're looking for when you're doing updates. But
yeah, and unfortunately not all these updates are going to be positive ones. Obviously we do have some positivity with the Adnan case and stuff, but yeah, we're not going to get all the positive news in every case. The next update we have is also from season 2. So season 2 episode 11, we did an episode on the cult at Sarah Lawrence College, and if you remember, it was a pretty crazy case. That was one where Larry Ray, he moved into his daughter's dorm room with all of her friends, and basically started a cult and right on the campus there, and basically controlled the lives of these college students for a few years, and basically controlled them to do horrendous things and just a lot of disgusting things that this man had gotten them to do. And he also had quite a checkered past as well. That was really, really interesting and also mind-blowing. So if you want to go and listen to the full case, definitely take a listen to our season 2 episode 11. But the update I have for this one is, because the last time when we recorded the episode, I said that he had been arrested and he was awaiting trial, and the results are in. So Larry Ray did end up getting convicted for all 15 charges that he was charged with things including sex trafficking, extortion, the list goes on and on and on. Like I said, there's 15, and so he was convicted of all 15. So he's going to be getting a very hefty sentence more than likely. His sentencing is scheduled for September of this year, so we'll definitely have an update for that later as it comes. But that's some a little bit of positive news. At least they're getting a little bit of justice for that. And there was also Isabella Pollock, and she was tried as a co-conspirator of Larry. She was a student who was also a victim of the cult, but then she kind of came out that she actually had a lot more involvement in it than was originally thought. So she was arrested and tried as a co-conspirator, and her trial is still ongoing, or she hasn't been convicted of anything yet. So we're still awaiting those charges. But yeah, Larry himself has been convicted at least. So that's definitely a good thing.
Yeah, that's good news.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess there was so much evidence. I mean, you couldn't really dispute it based on there was so much stuff involved in the investigation and all the stuff that they had on him. So I would have been very shocked if he actually got off. But still, I mean, we've seen it happen before. So you're kind of always expecting the worst, I feel, or I am anyway. So it's good to see when it actually works out the way it's supposed to. But also, we talked a little bit about in the episode as well, but it's kind of one of those ones where it was a little bit kind of a blurry line. We also talked about it in the NXIVM one too, where it's all these people were being convicted or tried, and it's, at what point is somebody crossed the line between being a victim and being a co-conspirator, right? You never really know where that line is, especially if they're if they're brainwashed by this person. How much of their actions are they really controlling themselves? So that's going to be an interesting one to see kind of where they draw that line, because I don't know how much involvement Isabella had. Obviously there was enough to charge her, but it's just kind of interesting. It's one of those similar to Allison Mack, right? In the NXIVM one, it's you can also consider her a victim of the leader, but also doing some pretty horrible things. So that's going to be interesting to see kind of where they fall on that. And so my next update is from a case that the very first case that we did this season, and that was the Kylen and Crystal case. That was the one that the two women who were found murdered at their campsite near Moab, Utah, and it was kind of tied into the Gabby Petito case at first, even though they were deemed to not be connected at all later on. But we had Gia come on the podcast and talk about that case with us, and there was an update in this one, and this is actually kind of they kind of zeroed in on a suspect. So do you remember during that episode where we were talking about this Adam guy, and he was the guy that he worked at the McDonald's with one of the women, and he kind of just skipped town shortly after the murders, and he didn't show up to get his last paycheck from work, so he kind of just went MIA, and that was super sketchy. And I remember at the time, Katie, you were very suspicious of this Adam guy, as was I, but just very, very sketchy. So the update on this one is that the police did kind of say that he was considered a suspect, an official suspect. So Adam, like I said, was an employee at the McDonald's where Crystal worked, and he was identified as a person of interest in the case, but he later died by suicide shortly after the murder. So after he skipped town, he ended up dying by suicide, but he had actually divulged, quote, specific details of the case that were only known to investigators, authorities said. So he was kind of telling somebody these details that, kind of one of those cases where they leave everything really close to the vest, and then if somebody is talking about things that isn't public knowledge, it kind of makes it more suspicious. So he was divulging some of this top secret information to other people, to give people a hint that he probably had something to do with it, but then he died of suicide later on. So there's nothing that they can really pursue with this one because he has died. So I don't know where that puts the investigation. That's kind of the last update that came out about it, and that was last month, I believe. It was in May that update came out, so I don't really know where the investigation stands. Are they going to just assume it was him and then just give up on the investigation because he's dead, or are they going to start looking to see if they can kind of confirm that, or if maybe there was someone else? I don't really know, but it's looking like it's very likely that it was that Adam guy, which wouldn't be a surprise if you listen to that episode, because like I said, he's very creepy based on the information we had about him, and very suspicious. Did you guys have any thoughts about that one?
I knew there was something up with that Adam guy. It, like you said, if you listen, it's very obvious that he was something going on with him. So it's unfortunate that, yes, he is dead, but I do hope they pursue, just so they can actually get full answers and closure for the family.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the same thing. Right from when we heard about this guy, I knew something sketchy was about him. But it's unfortunate that he is dead, but hopefully they do continue on with
Yeah, I feel like, I don't know, I kind of have a bad feeling that they're going to just be like, okay, it was him. That's it. He's dead. There's nothing we can do, which I hope they don't. I hope they at least try to, I don't know. Like I said, we don't really know because that's kind of the last update that came out was just that he was named a suspect and he's died by suicide. So I don't really know kind of where it stands, but I'm hoping that maybe they can at least go a little bit further and make sure that they can confirm that, because who knows if there was someone else involved that we don't know about. And also, who is this person that he's divulging information to? Like, can they find that person? And I mean, obviously they probably have, I don't know, but I feel like there's more there that they can definitely unpack if they tried. So I'm hoping that they do that. I haven't talked to Gia actually about that update since it came out, so maybe I'll reach out to Gia and see what she thinks about it. Maybe she has some additional information that I don't, since she's been in touch with some people who were close to the women. So that's that one. The next update I have is for the Elnaz Hajtamiri case, Season 3, Episode 7. And this was the case of the woman in Wasaga Beach who was abducted from her home and then never seen again. And she's still considered missing to this day. So unfortunately, it's not the update we want, where it's that she's been found. But and then it came out later that she was actually attacked a month prior to her abduction in a parking garage. And there was like the images of these two men that were the ones who did the assault on her, that may have some kind of connection to her abduction just a month later. So the update in that is that there was an arrest made in this case. So the two men that were involved in that assault in the underground parking garage, one of them was arrested. Ryasat Singh is 23 years old of Mississauga, and he was arrested and charged in connection to that assault. And the other person has actually not been caught yet, but they have issued a Canada-wide arrest warrant, and that is for Harshdeep Binner. He's 23 years old. He lives in Brampton, and they have released a image of him. So they are currently looking for him, and there is a Canada-wide warrant out for him. So obviously, I'm assuming when they arrested that one guy, he must have told them the identity of this other person, and that's how they know who it is, and they are looking for him. So if you have any information, we'll put a link to the article and to the photos in the show notes as well. So at least they did catch one of those people. We don't know anything further in terms of if these people were involved in the abduction also, or what kind of role they played there. So we don't really know. Those details haven't been released, but we just know that they were responsible for that assault on her in December of 2021. Like I said, which was a month before she was abducted. And then we do have a second update for this one as well. And this one came out towards the end of April, and it was confirmation. Remember in that case as well, I told you that there was an ex-boyfriend that she had broken up with in October of 2021, and he was kind of being looked at. He was kind of was a suspect because he was charged with stalking. He was charged with stalking. Or harassment of Elnaz, and so apparently their breakup didn't go very well, and he was kind of following her. And there was an article that came out by CBC News, and it did confirm that this ex-boyfriend did actually hire a private investigator to watch her before her Wasaga Beach abduction, which is a pretty significant detail, because if he hired this PI who could potentially have found out where she went to, because that was the question in the case, was like, how did they know that she had went to Wasaga Beach? Because if you remember, after her attack, they suggested she find a safe place to stay. And that's when she went to Wasaga Beach, and we didn't know how whoever it was that abducted her found out she was there. So the fact that her ex-boyfriend hired a PI to keep tabs on her makes it potentially a little bit more clear. Like, if this PI knows where she is, if that information gets out, it could lead right to her, which it did. So we don't know. Again, nothing came out that he was like the one who abducted her or was involved in that at all, so we don't know. But the fact that he had a PI looking out for her and looking for her whereabouts is kind of sketchy. Did you guys have any thoughts about these updates?
Yeah, that is interesting that he had a PI out looking for her. But yeah, I'm glad they're at least making progress in this case, because it could be completely cold. But yeah, so that's good to hear.
Yeah, and I think these updates came out in April, so pretty much like, I think it was like the day after we released that episode, one of the updates came out, and then like a week or two later, the other update came out. So it was like very recent after we released the episode. So I mean, at this point, they are a couple of months old already. So I'm really hoping that there's still some momentum coming along with this case. I really hope that they can find this other person who has this warrant out and then get more information. And yeah, I hope they find out a little bit more about what this ex-boyfriend's kind of involvement was past that. I don't know if there's anything, but I'm hoping they can figure that out. And so the last update that we have was actually for a case that we did last season as well. And it's our finale episode from last season. It was the 2-part Madeleine McCann case. And there was actually a pretty significant development that came out about that one as well. And that was that they did name, we talked about in that one, Christian Bruckner, who was kind of looked at as a potential person of interest. In this case, he was a very violent sex offender that is currently in prison for the sexual assault of another woman in the same area that Madeleine went missing from. And he was kind of thrown in there as a potential person of interest. So it was just in April that the Portuguese authorities, this is from CNN, the Portuguese authorities named a formal suspect in the case, and that was Christian Bruckner. And they did announce that they were going to be closing the investigation. And it was a little bit vague initially. Like, the article that came out just said that they considered him a suspect, a formal suspect, and that they anticipated that the case would be closed by the end of the year. But they didn't really say much else about it. But then the follow-up article came out that he is considered the only suspect in this case. Officially, it's been named a suspect, and he lived in the area where Madeleine's family was vacationing around the time that she went missing. So it's kind of looking like it's pointing to him. Not that it's any surprise, because if you listen to our finale episode on that, or if you watch anything about this case, you'll also get that same feeling, I feel. But do you guys have any thoughts about this one?
Yeah, I was just going to say I'm not surprised, because when we were talking, like, some of the evidence, they literally said they have enough to put him in jail forever. So, I was just basically waiting for that official announcement, and I'm glad that they finally made it.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing. Like, I knew from, like, when we were talking about him that he was definitely someone, the potential suspect. So I'm glad that they came to that conclusion, and that hopefully the family can finally have some closure into what happened to their daughter after all these years.
Yeah, because I think that's the worst thing too, is like not knowing what happened and having all these unanswered questions. So it's kind of good to know that they did officially name him as a suspect. But there was also some articles initially that came out that said that, like, they didn't, something about that they weren't going to be pressing charges against him, just that they knew he was a suspect, but they didn't anticipate any formal charges being pressed or something. So I don't really know how that is working. I mean, he is in prison in Germany because he's a German citizen, so he was extradited back to Germany, so he is in prison there. I don't really know how their kind of system works, and if he could be charged with something else while he's in prison, I don't really know. But
what's his sentence? Is he in jail for life already? So maybe they're like, he has no chance of getting out, so there's no point in pursuing this? Or they just feel like they wouldn't win? I don't understand.
So he's currently serving a 7-year jail term for the rape of a U.S. woman. So he could, if he's not charged with Madeleine's murder, then he's going to be getting out in 7 years, and then who knows what else he could do. And he's pretty violent and despicable, just based on the stuff that we know about him already. So, like, I feel like they would want to be charging him with something for sure.
Yeah, why is he the main and only suspect? They are going to close the case, but not charge him. I don't understand what's happening.
Yeah, and like that was, I think, because I remember, I feel like there was two. Since we did the finale, which was back in like December, I feel, or January, since then there was 2 different sort of updates that came out. The first one was kind of a little bit more vague, and it said that they weren't going to be, that they had a formal suspect, blah, 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 and it was kind of suspected that it was Christian. And then this latest one came out that said that, yes, he's officially the suspect and all of this stuff. But there's been no sort of other update in terms of like what they're going to be pursuing with him, which is weird. They just kind of said, yeah, he's considered the suspect. We have evidence to believe that he is. And that's the first time that they've ever come out and explicitly said his name. Like the German authorities have ever come out and said his name in relation to the case. It was kind of all speculative before, but yeah. So I don't really know where it stands, but they said that they're going to be closing the case, or they plan to be closing the case. So I mean, hopefully with that comes charges. I don't know how it couldn't. You can't close a case without charging someone, right? It just seems very weird.
It does seem very strange. And I just, I don't like the fact that he's going to be getting out, maybe, and be out there, even though they feel like he did this. It doesn't make sense. I don't like it.
And that's the thing is, I feel like in the first one that came out, the first update, it was like not the most reputable sources. So there was like one source I found that was actually reputable. The others looked a little bit more like tabloidy sort of sources. So I don't even know like what is even legitimate. There's one article from the Daily Beast that says that the detective worries that Madeleine McCann's suspect is the wrong man. So I don't know. I feel like that's probably not super legitimate, but it's one of those cases that there's so much attention out there about it that like it's inevitable that you're going to get all these sort of rumors or these misinformation sort of articles out there about it. So there hasn't been any clear answers.
It just seems super strange that they would close it but not charge anybody with it. It's just like, okay, we're done with this, basically.
Yeah, and it says that. And the same article by the Daily Beast, like I said, says, quote, I'm reading from, a German man serving time for the rape of a 72-year-old American woman should be charged for the kidnapping and murder of British toddler Madeleine McCann if a German prosecutor has the proof he claims that he does, a prominent detective has said in an Australian documentary. If not, then Christian Bruckner should be let free when his sentence for the rape ends in 2 years, though he is expected to be charged for an unrelated rape he committed in the same resort where McCann disappeared in the coming days. So, like, that's the thing. This guy's so despicable. He has multiple rape cases coming out against him. So I don't know. It just seems weird. Like, they're saying, oh, we have this evidence. But then people are like, well, do they really have the evidence that they need? Because if they do, can't they just charge them? Like, it seems very weird. I don't know.
Yeah, it kind of just seems like they're saying that because that's what they want people to hear. And maybe they said it kind of prematurely, thinking that, yeah, we're definitely going to have it. But then they don't. That's what it seems like is happening.
Like, it seems kind of disorganized. It's like, how can you come out and say that, name someone as a formal suspect and say, oh yeah, we have the evidence. Like, they have enough evidence to say that, but then not enough evidence to then charge the person. I feel like you would want to have that in line before you're going to come out and say that you have this evidence to say that this is a suspect, right? Yeah,
something seems sketchy, kind of. Like, why say that if you're not 100% sure? Got the world's hopes up, basically.
I know, and at the end of the day, like, what does it even matter if we all know it's him if he's not charged for it? You know what I mean? Like, that's what everyone wants is the charges. Like, you have to charge him for this. Otherwise, like, yeah, we all know he did it, but that's not going to matter.
Yeah, it's not complete closure to be like, yeah, he did it, but he's still out on the street and could do it again. Like, that doesn't help at all.
I know, it's like back in square one because you're just going to hear a news article that he did it to someone else because he got out of jail. So it doesn't quite makes sense. And then there's like another article I'm looking at here from the Olive Press. Again, I don't know what that is or if it's legitimate, but it says extradition request begins in Italy for Christian Bruckner over 5 new cases. So, like, what is going on?
Well, I do remember that in that documentary they said they had hundreds of videos that he had taken of his victims. So I feel like there's no shortage of, material out there that he's a shitty guy. So maybe somebody is going to do something and he'll still be in jail, but not for the Madeleine McCann case.
Wait, so I kind of confused. So when you're extradited, like if you commit a crime in another country, you're extradited back to your own country for trial, or you're tried in the country you committed the crime? Because you're usually extradited back, right, to your like home country, and you're charged, or you probably would be charged in the country that you committed the crime in.
I feel like you're extradited back to the country that you did it in, aren't you?
Think so. I think that's
so. Like so like if he like committed the murder of Madeleine McCann and then like fled back to Germany, then he would be extradited back to Portugal for the trial, if there was a trial.
Yeah. So if he's a German citizen, he committed the crime in Portugal, he's going to get extradited to Portugal. It's where the crime was committed, where you get extradited back.
And then he would go to jail in Portugal? Or he'd be extradited back to Germany to be in jail?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that, actually.
Although I feel like it's probably different laws for every country.
Yeah. So. Well, I feel like the country that they committed the crime in doesn't want another country's prisoner because they have to pay for that, right? So they'll probably send them back to go to jail, but I don't know.
Yeah, that makes sense, actually. Like, they want to try them in that country because it's like, you did this to one of our citizens, so we're going to try you here, but then we're not going to pay to incarcerate you.
Yeah, then they have to go back to their home country and go to jail. I get that makes sense, but I'm not sure. This probably might be different in different places as well.
Yeah.
It's also making me think like maybe the evidence that they have is all hearsay or circumstantial, and they just can't bring it together to be, like those situations where you just know who it is, but you can't prove it. I feel like that's kind of what maybe is happening here for sure.
But I feel like authorities can't come out to the public and say that we have a suspect based on circumstantial evidence, can they? And like name the suspect publicly based on circumstantial evidence. I feel like that's kind of
no. I feel like they definitely shouldn't do that, but
yeah,
maybe they just got so excited and like, yeah, we got the guy, and they just wanted to tell everybody when they really didn't have enough.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, it's like it seems promising that it is like at least linking to him, so if they can get some closure for the family. But then is it kind of a thing of like where they're focusing so much on him? Is it going to be one of those things where they're like not looking at other leads or something? But I don't know. It's like they're so focused on him, but clearly they don't have the evidence to point it to him directly, at least enough to charge him. So I don't know. It just seems like a very bizarre sort of situation, and kind of like in a weird limbo. Like you said, they kind of know who did it, but they can't say for sure.
It definitely seems like a super weird situation happening. It's unfortunate because I don't know, we just felt like we finally got the guy, but maybe they actually won't get him for this.
I know, and I remember it like came out on CNN and all of this stuff, like when the update did come out back in April, and it was kind of big news because it's, like I said, it's a pretty well-known case, but all of this articles on it were quite vague. It just said the police said that he's considered a formal suspect, but that they can't say if he will be charged for these crimes. So I don't know. It seems suspicious and sketchy. I don't know, but I'm hoping it's kind of a weird update because it's not really much of an update, because I feel like we all kind of suspected that it was this Christian guy by the end of the episode when we talked about it anyway. So it's kind of just confirming what we already suspected, but it's wild. So hopefully something concrete can come out, or some more information can come out about what the nature of this evidence is that they have. So hopefully that comes soon, but we will also let you know when we get that information, if we do. And like I said, if you want these updates in real time, definitely follow us on social media, specifically Instagram. That's kind of where we post it on our stories and stuff like that. So follow us at Crime Family Podcast on Instagram. We're on Twitter at Crime Family Pod 1, and we're on Facebook at Crime Family Podcast, and that's going to be your best source for getting the updates on these cases. We try to stay on top of it and try to get these updates to you as soon as we hear about them, but as we do more episodes and more cases, sometimes it gets hard to follow up on every single case, but as soon as we hear about it, we try to let you know. So those are the updates we have, some pretty significant ones for some of them, and as always, like I said, follow us on social media, send us your case suggestions for next season. Like I said, our finale is coming out later this week. This episode's coming out on Monday, but the two-part finale will be out on Wednesday, and then we will be off for a little bit and then back with season 4. So you can send us your case suggestions for the next season, because we're going to start compiling our list for the cases that we're going to be doing. So this is definitely now the time to send those suggestions in if you want your case to be covered potentially on our next season. So thank you so much for listening to the update episode. We hope you enjoy the finale that's coming out on Wednesday, and yeah, take care.
Bye.
Bye.